Welcome back, everybody. It's another episode of the Lumen Project. Hello, Jeff. Good to see you.
Hello. Hello, everybody.
We're talking about purpose today, the path to purpose. The path to purpose. Not a small conversation, but I think it would be good just maybe to set the tone for expectations here. Like, one, I don't think there's any one answer to that. And I think it's a more complicated subject than people give it credit. So I think maybe the goal here today is just to kind of walk through what we know about purpose, what we've learned about purpose through pursuing it. So
yeah, it's been a fun path. It's been an interesting path for a few years. If we go back to, I think when I started this with our first podcast, when I talked about how it all began,
yeah,
my purpose is still fuzzy at that point, but I had this life-changing experience. I almost die. I meet this crazy lady that's telling me all this stuff, and she's like, you didn't die, you're still here. God has a purpose for you. Go do that. And I'm like, all right, cool. What is it? She's like, I can't tell you what that is. You'll figure it out. When when you figure it out, you will know, and it'll become crystal clear.
Yeah.
I've spent the last 4 years of my life going, all right.
Right.
What is it?
Yeah.
Yeah. It's part of how this group came along, though. In the story when you and I first met and we started talking, I was like, I know that's part of it. Mm-hmm. She's mentioned that. The couple other people that I've had do hypnosis and some other work. I won't call it therapy, but was it healing therapy, Reiki, and all that stuff? They've all mentioned it. So it's funny because I've known inside what I want to go do. I don't quite know what that looks like, and we're massaging it and it's changing, but it's part of it, part of that path at least. And so that's been, I don't want to say fun. It's been fun. It's been anxiety inducing. It's been annoying to try to figure out what my purpose is and what my purpose in this whole machine is. Right. And
the machine of life, the machine of the
machine of life, the machine of the Lumen Project. I mean, a little bit of everything, right? It's what is my purpose to this group? Is it to be a coach? Is it to be a leader? Is it to just sit on the sidelines and let everybody else kind of do what they need to do? And that's still, like I said, kind of we're massaging that and working it out, and it's an ever evolving thing. So, but my purpose, I think, at the end of the day, when we boil it down to it, it's for me to help as many other people as possible live a better life. Through my experiences and my perspectives, and any advice that I can give, or coaching, or listening, whatever is needed, kind of in that sense. And so that's my immediate purpose. And this is the messed up thing, is I don't know if there's ever more clarity than that, or if it expands, or it's like I said, it's just always an ongoing thing. And
there's do you know the Tao Te Ching? Do you know the Tao Te Ching? It's ancient. I think it's Chinese script. And the first verse, it's 86 verses, 82 verses, I can't remember, but this spiritual text, the first verse of it says, the Tao that can be named is not the Tao. And by the way, Tao, I think, is translated to the way. So, but you could also replace that with God, or you could replace. So let's just take the Tao that can be named is not the Tao. So the minute you try to name, let's use purpose, your purpose, your way, the way. The minute you try to name this path of purpose you're on, it ceases to be all that it is, because you're using words to try to define it, but it's not definable, because the minute you define it, it's not all that it is. Right. And this is the challenge with marketing. Sometimes if you're coming from a place that's trying to make an impact in the world, and you're trying to condense that into a marketing headline, you're like, this isn't it. But I say that just because I think there's a lot of, as humans, we're drawn to purpose. I think every person wants to know and live in their purpose, but the actual living of the purpose, finding the purpose, defining the purpose, is not so easy. And it's so frustrating. Like you said, 4 years, and you can be up and down. Is this all of it? Is this not? What the hell? Can I get an instruction manual, please? so frustrating that it's enough to cause people to not engaged or to check out and just go back to, life as usual.
Yeah, living a normal life. It was interesting because when I started up the whiskey club and doing all this stuff back in the day, people used to ask me kind of like, what's your end goal with this? You just are going to open a private whiskey club and like, take over the world, or just have one here in Portland? And my goal, going back to the why and the purpose, I was like, look, I don't really care what this turns into. My goal is just to make enough money to take care of my mom when that time comes.
Nice.
And so, we talked about, we can ask people like, hey, what's your purpose in life? And if they say, well, it's to be a good provider for my family, or to take care of my family, or take care of my mom, or whatever it may be. But it's way, way bigger than that at the same time. Like that might not have been my purpose. That was my reason for wanting to do that. But the overall purpose is because I'm trying to take care of somebody.
Yeah, that's an interesting distinction. Like the difference between the purpose of something, the purpose of a project, like a whiskey bar or a whiskey den or whatever it was, versus the purpose of my life, like a life's work. I really love the phrase life work. What's my life's work?
Yeah.
What's the legacy? Like when I'm gone, I'm hoping that the work I started will continue on. That's what I want. I want that work because I believe in it enough to think that's important. Would I say my kids or my family are my purpose? It doesn't occur to me that way. I love them. They're the best thing I've ever made. Like my family's amazing, but it's not my why. It's not the thing that gets me up at night. I think it would be interesting to sit down with somebody and to explore what the bigger picture is.
Yeah. I heard a lyric yesterday. I think it was Macklemore. And he says something.
Tags. You popping tags? Oh no.
It was, I don't think it was that song, but it was one of his songs. I'm fairly certain. Or there's another guy that sounds exactly like him, but I forget his name. But anyway, the quote or the lyric they said was, you die twice. I'm going to paraphrase it and slaughter the saying, but it was basically like you die twice. You die once when your physical leaves the realm of earth, whatever, and then you die the second time, the last time somebody says your name. And like, I was like, holy shit, that's crazy to think about. Like, people that have been dead for hundreds of years and we're still talking about them, like they live on. But if somebody just has no life, no meaning, no purpose, and they're just going through their daily motions and they don't have a family and they die, the coroner says whatever so-and-so deceased at this time, like that might be it.
Right. Yeah.
So that was weird. Like I thought about that for a while, because I don't really have a big family. I have my mom left and some random cousins here and there, but that was kind of weighing on me. It was just like, shit, what would, like, I guess, would I die the second time really quickly, or would that live on for a while? People still talk about me. And that's, I don't know why I started thinking that and going down that path, but on the purpose of life, my purpose is to help as many people as possible. And it's not so that they keep talking about me, over the whatever, but it would be nice if after a few years somebody was like, oh man, Jeff really helped me out, or Chris really helped me out when I needed it, or whatever. Like, to have something like that living on forever, that's a pretty good purpose. And
I think there's something creatively, like when you're the creator, when you're the artist, when you're the one creating it, that it's, I'm sure for some people ego would play a role. I'm not sure that I care about that anymore. I don't, if they say my name or not, I'm not sure that, but as an artist, that the work lives on, that the work is appreciated or makes a difference, that feels really good to me. I'm in it for that.
Yeah.
I don't care if they attribute it to me or not.
That's a better way to look at it. Yeah. Like, I don't care if somebody's whispering my name, at 2 a.m. years from now, but
yeah, exactly. Yeah. Well, I think, when I think about the Lumen Project as a community of men who are engaged in a conversation about purpose, I mean, we've talked about all kinds of stuff, and I think that's fair play, fair game for, whenever you're trying to find your life's work. But I think a group of men in the question of what is my purpose, and it could take 4 years, it could take longer. I feel like I've found it, and there's still questions I'm having about it, right? Like you and I had a conversation before we record. Like I've been doing this work for years now, and I'm still wrestling with pieces. But
Right.
to have a group of men who are all in that conversation and working out their purpose, that's who I want to hang with.
And I think it gets from my experience now as we're going through it, it's like it's been pretty fuzzy for a while, and it's just getting more and more and more clear. And eventually there's got to be, and maybe not, I don't know, but as it's getting more clear, it seems like there would be a point to where it's so crystal clear that there's no more clarity needed, and we're just going down that path and everything's good. But that might take 100 years.
Yeah, maybe.
And
well, I think it's hard because as it's a moving target. Like the game of expansion is, if you expand into something unknown, which is the next iteration, now you're back into a place of uncertainty. It's not clear because it's expanded. There was an old proverb. There was a book I read years ago called Black Hole Focus. And I don't remember anything about it except for this one verse that was an old proverb. It wasn't a biblical proverb. It was just an old proverb. And it said, mountains are behind mountains. When the whole point was like, once you climb a mountain,
there's
another one, and you climb that one. And so it's like, it never ends. And I think purpose can be that way, or the path of purpose could be that way. Does it ever get clear? I don't know. I think if you think it will, you're going to be upset. Your expectations are going to be a little frustrated.
Yep.
Which is important.
I think it goes back to, our framework where we call it we're chasing the best life, even though one of the first things I say is like, you're never going to get there, because the best you're aiming for now, we're going to hit that ideally. And then we're going to do it again and again and again and again. And like, we'll die before we ever get to the best.
Yeah.
There's better, but it's just constant chase.
And I think, I remember years ago I read, I love this book, Built to Last from Jim Collins. And in the book, he talks about these companies you would know, like HP and other companies, who there was this thing they found in the study where these companies had the ability to preserve the core of who they were. And so they had yin yang symbol. So preserve the core of who they were and stimulate progress, right? So that if I think about like you on the path of purpose, there are your core values. There are the things you say you're here for to help the world with. That's the core. As you move down the road of that purpose, there'll be new expressions. There'll be progress that is stimulated from technology or new relationships, but the core doesn't change.
Mm-hmm.
But how you express that can change over time as it grows,
We've seen that pretty drastically in the last, I'd say, 6 months with all of the AI stuff that's come out.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, I'm a tech guy and I'm into this stuff, and I've been, I don't want to say studying, but toying with AI for a couple of years. And what I've seen in the last 6 months is just insane. Like nothing in our world has ever had this effect like this stuff has. And I mean, that's the best example I can think of now is like, nothing's ever not going to change. There's never going to be a time where we're like, oh, like all the knowledge has been expounded and taken in, like we're all good now.
Right. Yeah. Right. I was reading or listening. It was Mo Gadot, I think, who was the CEO of Google X. He did an interview on I can't remember the guy's podcast, but he was just, and this was recently, and he was just saying like AI's IQ is like 176. I don't know if that was the number, but it was like AI right now is smarter than most humans.
Oh yeah, easily.
And a couple of years, AI will be smarter than all humans. And then he started getting some existential possibilities. Like, what does AI think we're now the ant that just, is a nuisance? And so AI gets rid of humans because we're a nuisance? Or does AI become benevolent because it's smarter and it thinks, okay, I'm going to help these people out? Or does it just forget us altogether and find another solar system and just go, like, see ya, you guys, this is boring, I'm out. Like, I need something new.
Yeah, it's I mean, we're going into the iRobot / Terminator / whatever. All of those movies are going to come true or not in the next 10, 20, 30 years, which is kind of scary. I mean, I don't know, like I said, I follow it a lot more than most people, but there's been some stuff that some of the guys at Google have leaked out on Reddit where they're like, we had to pull the plug on this project because it was starting to do shit on its own. And God, I read a thing. We don't have to go down the AI rabbit hole, but I read a thing a couple of weeks ago where basically it hired a TaskRabbit, which is a human, like a human.
Right.
It was able to manipulate and go hire a TaskRabbit person to do the job that it was assigned to do because it knew that it wasn't human and able to. Like, if you plug in the right things and let it do it, it'll do stuff like that. And I'm like, again, just
yeah.
Like, that wasn't supposed to happen, and it did. And so now they're like, okay, that's a whole nother level of crazy.
Dude, but I think it's totally relevant to this conversation, because as I've been listening to these AI conversations, debates, dialogues, and I already have a sense of what my purpose is. I'm starting to see how those two things are merging. Like, how does my desire to create a better world mix with and when something like AI is a variable? And how for example, I think one of the things that we as humans have forgotten is how to have good dialogue about things. Like, we want to fight or we want to pick sides, but we don't really know how to support one another and collaborate together.
I'm looking because OpenAI that made ChatGPT and all this stuff, literally their slogan is creating safe AGI that benefits all of humanity.
We'll see. We'll see. We'll see. But I mean, so then I start to think, okay, well, my work in these communities now feels even more important, because if what people start to do is just get lazy and have AI do everything, which, I mean, fine, you want to do that, fine. But I think what I think is possible is that if AI is doing most of the jobs and things, that gives us the opportunity, and we have some sort of income where our needs are met. There's a renaissance here. There's a rebirth of creativity, because we're not having to work the factory. We're actually able to ask the question, what is my purpose? And let me go create that. Anyway, but you'd have to know the core of who you are. You'd have to say, like, this is the core of who I am. I'm not chasing trends. This is what I'm here to do. And I will use trends to serve the core. But anyway.
Yeah. And get clarity and then stay on the path.
Yeah. Well, I would say, as an invitation for people, like, this is the conversation of purpose, grounded in 4 pillars: mindset, body, business, and relationships. Because those serve you on your path to your purpose. Like, this is what we're up to in Lumen. Do you have anything you want to add about the community itself, Jeff?
No. No, I mean, I think we've been wrestling with the best way to describe what we do and how we do it and why we do it. And that's part of this. What I was saying earlier, where like my purpose is fuzzy and it keeps changing and all of this. And it's like we have this idea that this community should be a bunch of people, a bunch of guys specifically, that are in the same realm, that are all trying to just do better and be better and live better. And you can't do that without having a vision. And above that, I think, is your purpose. This framework we've created and what we're going to create, I think that's kind of the hierarchy of it, is like the overall purpose. What's my life's work? What's my purpose? What's my vision? How am I going to get there? And then the steps that I'm going to take, and us coaching and fostering those conversations and going and doing that along the way. Like that's pretty much our life right now. My life right now.
Yeah, so good. I always found it, or I should say, I always found it refreshing when I got to work with coaches who didn't talk down to me and didn't have the absurdity of having like such black and white answers like, oh, I know everything and I've got everything figured out and everything is perfect. Like I was smart enough to just be like, that's ridiculous. So when I got to work with coaches who were grounded in their humanity, that no one's perfect and we're all just walking each other home, but they were coaches who were further down the path than I was in asking questions, finding frameworks that worked for their life. I've really valued that interaction. And I think that's, when you and I have talked about what this Lumen Project is, I feel like that's the heart of this kind of coaching. Like Jeff and I don't have your answer, but we have some things that we think we've, definitely figured out for ourselves. And I think we know how to ask good questions to help other people, start to play with what their purpose is. So
I just wrote down what you said, the further down the path, because I've always been trying to find a tactful way to say that to people. It's like, I have more life experience than you. And they're like, I'm 60 and you're 45. How do you have life experience?
Right. Yeah.
But that's a really good way of saying that. Like, I'm further down that path than you. Because we can also
that path, right.
Yeah, whatever that path, the mindset thing or the relationship thing or whatever. That's what I wrote that down. Like, I like that. It was a very tactful way of saying, I've experienced more in my short life than you have in your long life. Like, it's not always a good thing or bad thing, but
well, especially when it comes to certain topics, right? Like you said, that path, if it's the path of purpose, I've been fucking on that path for a long time, 20 years, I think. Even in college, I can remember having a heart for wanting to make an impact in the world. And when I was 20, I just didn't know what I didn't know. And then I got into business, and that was for 20 years, that was like, I felt like a fish out of water. And now I've only finally begun to come back into alignment with what my purpose is. And I see how that detour through business is so helpful for me now. But sometimes coaches are good coaches because of how much they've failed, like I failed consistently and persistently for 20 years with the conviction to find my truth and the thing that I'm here for. And I mean, it's just not as black and white as so many coaches make it sound.
And it's funny, over the weekend I was having a conversation with this girl that I'm hanging out with, and I said, I had a failed business, or however I framed it, and then I was like, well, I hate saying that it was failed. I'm like, technically it was a business that failed, like we shut it down, blah blah blah. Like, but I learned so much from that shit. I learned, I got a freaking PhD in how not to do certain things and how to do certain things, and it costs about as much, I think, as he would, but I would never say it's a failure because I learned. And as long as we have that, that's what gives us the ability to say I'm further down that path than most people.
Right. Yeah, it's good. Well, if you listening to this are the kind of person that likes to have one is on the path of purpose, wants to be on the path of purpose, and would like some perspective from some other people on that path of purpose, I think the Lumen Project could be a fit for you. I would go to thelumenproject.com and check out, there's a bunch of stuff there, as well as a video talking about the community and an application. So we'd love to see your application and get to know you more. So
Yep.
Good stuff.
And like and subscribe to our podcast. I think. Like and subscribe to the podcast.
Exactly. So good. Awesome, Jeff. Thanks for this conversation. We'll see you in the next one.
Yep. Thank you.